let's start with some of the burning issues in the country at the moment, and that has to do with the recent gruesome murder of Dele Farotimi by a trigger-happy Nigerian police officer. I remember in one of your recent interview you did recently, you addressed the issue by using an illustration of a dog that has been starved by its owners, and it seems Nigerian police first and the Nigerian government have not learned any lesson from the NSAS uprising. Let's get your reaction to this recent gruesome murder, and what, in your view, should be done to end police impunity, sir?
Well, in any other environment or society, your question would appear pretty straightforward enough. One should offer the usual platitudes of hopes that the Nigerian police would bring the erring officer to book, but all of these would presume sanity to the system that has produced the situation that we are being asked to discuss. But the reality is this: the killing of Dele Farotimi is not uncommon. Is not something that does not happen every other day in Nigeria. The only reason we are talking about Mrs. Farotimi, may God rest her soul and the soul of our unborn twins, the reality is that this happens in the Nigerian space every day. There are many Dele Farotimi that get killed every day. Death stalks the Nigerian wherever he might live, or she might live, and there is barely any accounting for the lives that are gruesomely cut short, because unfortunately we've become acculturated to this madness. Now, if I have listened to the story, read the reports, and it all seems so mundane. A mother, somebody's daughter, somebody's wife was sat in a car on the street of Nigeria going to buy pizza on a Sunday afternoon after church. It's the story, or is the everyday story of the Nigerian. And then, because we have not even managed to get the state to perform the most basic of its function, we had policemen on the road supposedly providing security to those who should be called citizens. It is actually a very painful subject, because we're talking about Mrs. Farotimi because it happened in Lagos and it is reported. But this is the reality of the Nigerian from Otukpo to Kaduna to Sokoto to Kebbi to everywhere you turn in Nigeria. Death would appear to be pretty cheap. And all this is because at the end of the day, we are governed by impunity instead of law. That policeman had no business on the road in the first place. Every Inspector General of Police has decreed that they should get off the road, but yet they've multiplied on the road. And we haven't complained because death is so cheap on our roads. If it is not the uniformed killers, it will be the ununiformed ones. Whether they have cows or not. If it were only Fulani bandits killing in Nigeria, we probably would have less deaths. But you can see uniform man killing, and that is the everyday story. And somebody will kill somebody in Oshodi as well, or kill somebody in Abule. The point I'm making is simple. As a society, we have normalized the unbelievable and unthinkable, the abominable have been normalized. And we need to urgently look at ourselves. We can look to Mrs. Rahim's case, and we should. But it's just, unfortunately, another day in Nigeria, and Nigeria kills. It kills. With brutal efficiency, Nigeria kills.
You said in your recent statement, statement that we are governed by impunity instead of by law. And this culture of impunity seems to have been ingrained in the Nigerian psyche and the Nigerian system. But the question is, can it end? And what do you propose should be done? Are we talking about a change of leadership?
Look, what a people tolerate is what becomes the culture. We have become so acculturated to insanity that it has become the normalcy in our country. Only a few days ago, we were being regaled by tales of these DSS applying to the court to give an ex parte order to arrest Emefiele,
Because the central bank governor.
The next thing we are hearing, Emefiele has suddenly become a fugitive wanted by the DSS. Who runs a country like this? This is worse than a banana republic, if the truth be told. It's almost as if the madmen are the ones running the asylum when you really, really think about it, because this is worse than impunity. If impunity is harnessed to some visioning, to some ideas as to what those who are exercising the powers of impunity are looking to achieve with the impunity that they are exercising, it might even be useful. But this is impunity that appears to have actually morphed into something darker, more sinister, simply because it is based on consumption of everything. Nothing seems to govern appetites anymore. We've graduated from having Ponde fainting in our National Assembly. We've graduated from having off the mic. We've graduated from that to having our central bank governor demanding to become president while still sat in the office of the central bank governor. And today, the same central bank governor is on the run. From who? For what? They are making grave allegations, financing terrorism. This is the same government that has had list of terrorists in his hand forever and has done nothing. So something somewhere is threatening to do in the brains of those who presume to still use their brains in Nigeria. And I think because it is critical, you ask that question so that we don't fall into the trap of analysis paralysis. You said, what can we do? I think it is critical that the Nigerian begins to first of all ask of themselves, are we human? Because if we are human, we cannot have standards unique to us and different from that being used by the rest of the world. If the world has become a global village and we continue to live by these unsustainable standards, we're simply going to implode one day, and then we're already imploding. Everywhere is appearing to be a mess. So what do? Demand first. Are we human? If we are human, then we must demand human standards. We must demand human standards. Human standards demands that when people have done things that they shouldn't do, they should account for what they have done. It shouldn't be that some people can just act with crass impunity, just ride roughshod over it, and then we will just move on, because the next thing you will know now, they will come back and say, oh, so there was nothing, or they would have him removed from office so that perhaps somebody will come and reverse their policy that appears to have been the catalyst for the whole nonsense. This policy on change of currency, maybe somebody else will come, and then all the money spent so far printing this new currency, all the manner, the untold turmoil in the economy, all of that, and then they will say nothing has happened, just like nothing happened to Magu, nothing will happen, because I say it, they're not born anybody well to touch Emefiele amongst them. All this one is just farcical gyration. All the thing they did in their Coven will come out in the open for everybody to see, and they all know it. But because of this, their narrow thing that they are, whatever it is, just narrow interest, they are prepared to scatter the entire economy of a country, all because of, anyway.
Yeah. It's beginning to see that Nigerians are also being distracted with a lot of issues at this point in time. What, in your opinion, may have accounted for these distractions, and what should Nigerians be focusing now as we move towards general elections in 2023?
See, the purpose of weaponized poverty is to limit the capacity of the sufferer in the usage of his intellect. When you now align weaponized poverty to weaponized ignorance, what you get is stupefaction, which is what has happened in the Nigerian space. So constantly, the Nigerian system feeds the Nigerian people who are fixated on surviving. Because look at it, it's the festive season, we have fuel scarcity. The people who travel the most in Nigeria during the festive season, they have serious insecurity in their zones. In the midst of all of these, food inflation has gone off the chart. In the midst of all of these, everywhere you turn, everything is scarce. So it becomes pretty difficult for the person who is focused on surviving to look beyond the day and the moment. So it becomes very easy for a candidate that shouldn't even be anywhere near the presidential race, that should be the focus of everybody thinking about how to change this country, save it from itself, make sure that this madness that we are all discussing stops being our preoccupation. All these are impossible because the people are being distracted with hunger, with scandals, little unnecessary things here and there thrown their way just to make sure that they cannot focus on what is important. But in the midst of all of this, some of us, I once wrote a piece, I said, play God or play dog. How do you play dog? The dog barks. That's all it does. But it alerts the homeowner so that the homeowner is aware that there is danger approaching. It is the duty of some of us to act as the dog, and the dog's intention is to focus the homeowner's attention on imminent danger. 2023 February is an inflection point in the life of this country. The Nigerian gets to choose whether he is human and still capable of using his intellect. We should tell him that his self-preservation is paramount. And he should be able to tell that if he continues on his current trajectory, ruination awaits. These are the clear issues before the Nigerian as he enters into 2023. It is perhaps divinely orchestrated that today is the last day of this year, and tomorrow marks the beginning of another year. But the Nigerian also has to understand that 2023 must mark the beginning of a different path. In everything we do in 2023, we must understand that our current paths are unsustainable. I urge Nigerians in 2023, look beyond your ethnicities, your religions, all the many differences. You have to look beyond those ones in 2023. Those who rule us, in their Coven, those divisions do not matter to them. It doesn't matter one jot. Their daughters marry themselves. Oh, sorry, the daughters and sons, they marry themselves. They do businesses together. Their fortunes are conjoined. They don't ask the ethnic or religious background of other members of their Coven, even though that helps in gaining access into the Coven. Why are we the ones who continue to divide ourselves for those who are united against us? I wish you a happy new year. May God bless you all.
Many Nigerians know that you are an ardent supporter of Peter Obi's presidential bid, and questions are being asked. Peter Obi seems to have taken Nigerians by storm, so to speak, and the questions being raised is that will Peter Obi's presidential candidate has what it takes to defeat the behemoth of an APC and PDP, considering the fact that these have formidable forces to be reckoned with, and they come from strongholds. How do you see Peter Obi really fighting this battle?
You know, every time I've been asked this question, because it has come in different guises, what I've been intrigued, mainly because I think it's a misunderstanding of the battle terrain in the 2023 election to ask that question that way. This is not about Peter Obi. The truth of the matter is that the Peter Obi presidential bid is really not about Peter Obi. Peter Obi himself cannot come out and tell people that he's not running again. He can't withdraw from this race. It's not about Peter Obi. Peter Obi is merely the totem. A people have sat back for a long season, being held down, knocked back every time they've attempted to get up. A lot of them walked away from the process and became disconnected from that process, disavowed any involvement with this. They walked away. But you see, I keep talking about 2023 as an inflection point. And what does that mean? It simply means that several issues, seemingly unrelated, that had lingered for a long time, have culminated in this moment. Why is it that it is at that point when we were all demanding, I was demanding at least for the last 2-3 years, that the next president should be of Igbo extraction? Why is it at that time that somebody like Peter Obi emerged as a candidate? Because if it was somebody like Oji Uzor Kalu that had emerged, that certainly would not be banging the drum of Igbo candidacy. It's not going to happen. But a man who is eminently qualified and happens to be of Igbo stock is out there contesting. So that's one. A lot of people are queuing up behind that singular issue. That's one. And then NSAS is unfortunate, but the reality is that the Nigerian attempted to assert citizenship during the NSAS protest, and the state violently clamped down on that attempt, and the system, thankfully, was denuded, so the people could see it for the evil that it truly is, and the people who were the victims, those who attempted to protest, their anger was still simmering. But anger without action is nothing, is impotence. So in the immediate aftermath of NSAS, some of us went out there and we were begging people, go and register to vote. There were several people, church organizations, mosque organizations, civil rights organizations, all sorts of people were actively working to ask people to register to vote. So, in the midst of all of this, there was no Peter Obi. There are several other things going on. The Muslim ticket, for instance, was another galvanizing factor. So there are some people whose sole interest is, I'm not going to vote this Muslim ticket. So you have myriads of interests that have coalesced together at the same time to create an inflection point. Peter Obi is merely the beneficiary of a moment in time that he himself, this is where I talk about preparation and opportunity. People talk about luck. There is nothing called luck. I'm not saying that there aren't happenstance, but I'm saying that there must be a coincidence of preparation and opportunity. If you are not prepared, the opportunity will come and it will go because you were not prepared. If Peter Obi had not built up the goodwill he built up by his deeds in Anambra, he would not be able to stand. I would not be able to speak for him. Because at that point, it would now be a political thing that I will be doing. But I can speak for him because he has a record that speaks for him. People would have exceptions here and there. It's up to them to bring their exceptions. It's a marketplace of ideas. That's what politics is. Bring your ideas, put it in the marketplace, and then tell me what it is that you can point at that you will say makes him compare less favorably with either a Milokon or Etiku. The reality of the matter is that the people in the race, none of them, none, compares to him in terms of record in public office and in the private sector. They might have issues here and there. Anybody can say what they care to say. But the reality is that as far as public service is concerned in the space called Nigeria in this 2023 election, there is no compare to Peter Obi in terms of record or in terms of visioning.
Let me just get your view on this.
Yes,
I mean, a lot of Nigerians are also concerned about Peter Obi meeting with those so-called leaders who have ruiners of this country, like people like Obasanjo, for example, people like Babangida, for example. Some have called to question his credibility with regards to meeting with such elements.
I think those calls are largely hypocritical, and I'll make my position clear.
How do you?
He's a politician. A politician seeks votes. Even the condemned
prisoner in some democracies still have the right to vote. That I am canvassing his support does not render me complicit in his crime. And let me make this clarification. I do not consider either Obasanjo, IBB, or even Abdul Salam for that matter, I do not consider any one of them to be models for anyone to follow. But I cannot condemn a politician who goes to visit somebody who has sat in the office that he is seeking to occupy. It might be that what he's even learning from them is how not to do it. But it will become an issue if he wins the office tomorrow and he attempts to use his office to shield them from prosecution, because some of us are of the firm opinion that even their families should cough up what they have stolen. So nobody, as far as I'm concerned, as long as Mr. Peter Obi is not saying, oh, you cannot demand that justice be done in relation to them, unless it says that.
But Peter Obi has not categorically come out to say that if he is elected,
why would he do that?
He will probe this criminal
Why would
elements.
he do that? He's a politician. Why would he do that? The only person I know of in the public space running for office that has said that is my friend Shore. Nobody else would do that. Do you understand? The point is he running for office as the federal prosecutor? No. He's running for office as the president. That's all he's running for. If Nigeria is anchored to the rule of law, and we have a president who is willing to submit himself to the rule of law, and if he fails to submit himself to the rule of law because the country is ruled by law, he will be subject to the law, then let him get into office and say that we cannot demand judicial probe of all occupiers of that office who have stolen this. Somebody must account for why we are the way we are. So the Pondays of this world will go with their loot. All those offering mics. Look, he's the one looking for the presidency. We are not looking for the presidency, and we are not seeking any political office. I'm a private citizen, and as a private citizen, I have a right to demand that the laws be upheld in my country. And I am of the firm opinion that an account must be held. These people must render an account for their deeds. I'm not just talking about Obasanjo or IBB or Abdul. It's personalizing it. It's a systemic accounting that must be done. You cannot claim that all of a sudden, so the law is beginning to rule. But that law that is ruling is not going to demand account of those who have stolen and held the nation bondage and who are still holding untold riches. That is not rule of law.
So you are certain that Peter Obi will have the political will to do that under the rule of law?
Let me be clear. I have no reason to doubt that Peter Obi would sustain the rule of law. What he does, what guarantees he might have given anybody, I am not aware of any, and I don't believe he has offered anybody any guarantees. What I am saying, let me repeat myself unequivocally, and I speak as Dele Farotimi, a private citizen. My life began before Peter Obi ran for the presidency, and my life, if God elects to preserve me, will continue long after he might have left that office. I am saying that as far as I am concerned, nothing, absolutely nothing changes. Whether they are supporting Peter Obi or not supporting Peter Obi, as long as they are Nigerians like me and you, they must be subject to the rule of law. That is my position.
Let's get back a bit to the issue between the central bank governor and the lawless DSS court injunction with drama shows, and which has been described by many Nigerians to be a drama show, as a matter of fact. Do you see anything coming out of this? Do you see the central bank government being held to account?
Look, I repeat myself. Maybe you didn't hear me before. Nothing will happen to Emefiele. They are just plays their usual games. Just like nothing happened to Magu. You are done watching the Abba Kyari Nollywood special. Nothing, that one is not going anywhere either. I told you all these things way back. The system cannot afford to punish one of his own. Because how do you go about the business of punishing someone like Emefiele? He must have, don't forget about it. Everything they've done in the last 7 years, it's been part and parcel of it now. So how do you go about the business of punishing him?
How do you reconcile Akin Oshitoko's position? Some have described him as an internally displaced politician, jumping from one political party to the other. And I mean, the fact that he's even being identified with the Peter Obi's presidential bid,
you see,
it's becoming a topic of controversy.
Controversy, contrived controversy, you mean to say? There is no controversy there. Look, I have said, and I've used this analogy in past discussions. The Labour Party of today, is not the Labour Party of 6 months ago. The Labour Party you have today is something akin to, maybe I should say, the old Nadeco. People came from different tendencies. They had only one thing they agreed on, the actualization of June 12th. A lot of them were not party to the SDP's victory. And they were not even they didn't work for Abiola. But when it was time to coalesce around a principle, they agreed and coalesced around it. The reality on the ground is that and I'm proud to say is my Egbon, is somebody I know personally as well. Balogun Akinojutokun is eminently qualified. They will refer to his senatorial ticket with Zenith Labour Party. Reality is that as at the point when he was picking up the ticket, this is something I can say from having had this talk. At the point he was picking up the ticket, he wasn't in the Obi movement. Let me just put it that way. He wasn't part of the Obi project. He was tangentially connected to it. He was going to run, and then he decided not to run, and he informed them. They were duly informed, but it was too late by this time to remove his name from the INEC portal. Now, assuming but not conceding that he's even running in the election, how does that in any way, shape or form renders him ineligible to be the DG? This is politics, and we should leave politics for politicians. Me, I'm not a politician. However, what I can say to you is anything that anybody is saying and talking about a controversy is just that. How can you be busy facing a controversy with Akinojutokun Balogun being the DG when you have candidates who have humongous controversies wrapped around their heads like turban? Nobody is talking about age controversy, name controversy, conviction controversy. Nobody is talking about Ferguson controversy. Nobody is talking about those ones, but they are busy chasing Akinojutokun. That's the one that is a controversy. When people are ready, they will face controversies. That's not an issue.